We're live. Okay there. What do you know? Hey everybody. Welcome to another episode of Crypto Marketing Insights. I'm your host, Yasha Harari. And just before we start, this is not a financial advice show. I'm not a financial advisor. And this is a show about marketing. So do your own research if you're doing research about investing or anything like that, because this is not a show about that. We talk about the market, but from the perspective of marketing. So disclaimer out of the way, because I'm not doing that stuff. If you want financial, non-financial advice shows that are really good to talk about the market from an investment perspective, there's plenty of other channels. You can look at the side of my own channel, featured channels, there's a bunch of them in there. Go through that list, there's a whole bunch of them that are great to watch. And you can certainly check out a number of awesome YouTubers who talk about prices, specifically as an investment vehicle and everything else. We do talk about prices, but from a perspective of marketing and how it all fits in with blockchain and cryptocurrencies. Because marketing, as with any industry, is important to know, and that's the purpose of this channel, is to talk about marketing, and crypto is a large part of that, since my agency is deeply into that area. Just to give you guys a quick, sort of a why into this topic. Right? So now that you know that, and I've been doing this for, marketing stuff for ages, and I have been, into YouTubing, I guess, about crypto specifically this past year mostly, but just sort of, made that sort of a more public over the past year. I see there's some kind of weird errors with this stream. Not sure what the problem is, but YouTube seems to have some kind of issues. I hope you guys hear what's going on, at least, and see, and that the problem is just local on our end of the world. Let's see here. Normal. Let's put this here. Enable DVR. I don't know. Sure. The internet, so interesting sometimes. I don't know if you guys can hear me or anything like that, but if you're in the VIP lounge, because I'm just not looking at the screen right now, but because we're testing this new system here. But if you just want to give a hey-ho, let me know, and I'll see if you're able to hear or see this. Oh, good. You are. Okay. All right, good. Well, then, in that case, we shall continue. And just hope for the best for the YouTube side of it. If you're watching this on YouTube and it suddenly goes wacky, email your complaints to the team of highly trained professionals at YouTube, because they're the ones responsible for this, what seems to be a hot mess on their channel, but it's working fine for our members in the lounge. So that is who the show is for, folks. So I hope you can see us on YouTube, but if not, well, I guess next time we might try the older setting again. I'm not sure how that's all going to work. So that's fine. Anyway, if you do see us on YouTube and you want to make a comment or something, feel free to say hi, anything like that. Participate, engage, it's all right. But we are going on. So if we look at the markets today, we've got a market sitting at 2,110 cryptocurrencies at worth $135 billion. So not very much per crypto on average. And BTC dominance is at 50.9%, dropping even further than yesterday, which means that more money is still going into altcoins. Is this altcoin season? It appears to be so. Will this have a positive or negative impact on the markets from a marketing perspective in terms of businesses getting their story out as far as why to invest in their altcoins? Well, it appears to be that those things are in effect, and we've been saying for
the whole past year now. If you're marketing a crypto or an altcoin or a project like that, this is the time to be pushing and getting traction. And we see now that we are pushing and getting traction from some altcoins. Will this be the beginning of it, or is this just a short-term thing? It really depends on how well these currencies have planned their marketing strategies beyond these initial pumps, right? Because you don't want to just have a pump and dump and then forget about it. I mean, unless that's your short-term goal, if you're a very ethical marketer, right? It's not a very ethical thing to do, you know, the pump and dump. But lots of people do it. So the question is, are the coins that are getting these great gains right now, relatively, you know, on average? I mean, the top coins didn't see massive jumps, but they saw nice gains overall, little green. And you can see here, like crypto.com chain went up 49%. I know Qtum also went up significantly. It was like 30, 40%, something like that. 17% now because it dropped off about a half of the gain, almost a half of the gain. So yeah, they were up like 30 something percent and then fell off. Lisk is up 14%. You know, there's a bunch of coins going up nicely in the altcoin, and all week we've seen a bunch of much higher gains even, right? Which again, these things are not happening by accident, right? These things are happening because their marketing book is in play, right? They're doing certain things that are getting them this action. It's not, you know, it's not by accident that Qtum bumped, right? If you read the backstory. So is this good overall for the market, that we're seeing altcoins right now in season, a la mode, like, you know, end of the winter and beginning of the spring? Well, it is good from a marketing perspective to get the story out. Is it good long-term to overpromise and underdeliver? No, of course not. Do they need to make sure that they have what they can deliver, at least for the valuations they're currently charging? Yeah, they better have it soon if they don't already, right? And many of these coins, admittedly, do not have what they need to be where they want to be, right? This is part of the process, as they raise these funds, and then in theory, they use those funds to develop whatever it is they're promising to the people who bought early in order to get bigger gains when they release an actual product or service to the market, right? That's the marketing strategy of a lot of these coins. Is that good for the overall ecology ecosystem? The ecosystem of blockchain? Well, some would argue no, it's not, and that we need a more traditional approach to raising the funds and building the product, and then only then going to the market. But I would say this market is so small that the people who are into crypto are the people who are the natural investors, so to speak. They are the audience you would approach, because there aren't that many other people right now in this business who would want to invest in it for a lot of reasons. Fear, panic, pandemonium, the whole deal. And that's what we're seeing, is that the people who are into this business right now, while it's at the lows, are the people who are setting themselves up to get nice gains in the future, right? This is when markets are at lows and blood is on the street, right? That's when investors go looking around for opportunities. While everyone else is panicking and running for the hills and trying to amass what little they can of the meager means that they think they need to survive the next horrible period, smart investors are walking into the wreckage, looking around for carcasses that are valuable to fix back up and take to the market. And they know exactly that this is the time to get into opportunities, right, to lay out their marketing efforts now while everybody's fearful. Now is the time to start changing that tide of perception, right? Now is the time to start buying all these things. I mean, you know, take advantage of the opportunity. Obviously, they need to collect their bags and fill them up with whatever they believe is going to be best for their future, right, as an investment. And then with that, you know, march ahead with the marketing strategy for that particular investment to succeed, right? So this is the time to set, you know, not set fire and forget, but to set fire and manage the hell out of your marketing strategy, right? Because this is the time, if you're doing crypto marketing, that nobody else is looking, nobody else cares. So this is the opportunity to grab land in areas that everybody thinks are, worth nothing relatively. Look at the big picture. I mean, yes, I know the day traders out there who are also marketers and who are listening to this are going to say, what are you talking about? There's plenty of action and there's plenty of this. Yes, sure, but there's really little volume. That's kind of unarguable. And generally speaking, this is a very quiet market compared to even where it has been in the past, and compared to real markets that trade in the trillions of dollars, right, per year, or have trillions of dollars of market cap, right? This is a very small market relatively, right? There are companies we all know, Starbucks is worth more, Apple is worth more, Facebook is worth more. We know that Google is worth more, sure. But industries very often start small, right? And the fact that it ballooned for 1 year to a very high number and then suddenly it popped and came back down with a vengeance doesn't mean that the marketing story of crypto is over. In fact, quite the opposite. That wasn't a false start, but that was a big start that ran too fast, too quick, too early. And because of that, we saw, a massive correction that was expected, not just in market value, but in projects running, right? In marketing projects. They got slammed. They got burned up and thrown away. Many of them just lingered off, withered away and died because a lot of them were just really bad projects and really nobody had any possible chance of, getting a use case built, let alone mass adoption. So that being said, we are now at a period where this winter has lasted so long. I mean, this bear market, winter has lasted so long that the only people left in the game are the people that really care about this as a serious opportunity, or the die-hard charlatans who just won't give up and just, are going to try to find a way to stick into something that, they got burned, everyone else got burned in, but they're the ones that are going to succeed at fooling everyone else. There's always going to be a bunch of those clowns. But the real people doing the serious business of blockchain, they are the ones currently in the business. Are there going to be new players that we don't even know about? Of course there are. That's the beauty of innovation, right? We don't know, actually, what ultimately will be the thing that is the main app people use, currency people use, assets people trade. We don't know. We have no idea. We don't know what the main use case will be of crypto, ultimately. We're at such a tiny percentage of the market being penetrated. But we are getting indications, as early as we are, about what it is that the market is interested in. And so far, people who are involved in crypto are in it for financial reasons. That is kind of obvious, right? It is a money market. But they're also in it for other reasons. Some are in it for potential long-term investment, especially millennials or people who have a understanding of, who are very tech embracive and understand the potential value of having crypto in the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years, right? And so on. We're seeing those kind of evolutions happen, right, in the blockchain area, and that is an early indication for the marketing aspect that we are far from the end of the marketing cycle of this. We are really just at the beginning. 10 years is not a long time for currency markets to evolve. And on that note, I want to switch over from looking at the market scores to actually a story on the Daily Hodl. And of course, all the links are or should be in the description, assuming this Bitcoin this YouTube stream, about crypto is actually working, because at the moment we're seeing all kinds of weird messages from the YouTube. But to those of you in the lounge, I see that you guys are very active. We'll get to your comments in a bit, because yes, they all kind of interconnect with the stories I'm talking about today. Okay. In a very strange way, but I'll pull them together for you, no worries, okay? So on the Daily Hodl is a story that is called Don't Bother with Bitcoin Faucets, okay? Now, for those of you who don't know what a Bitcoin faucet is, Bitcoin faucets used to be this thing, well, they still are. They're basically websites that let you go on, spend a bunch of time clicking around on stuff, doing a bunch of little mini tasks, and you know, you get rewarded some very, very tiny amount of Satoshi, right? So a very, very, very small fraction of Bitcoin. At the height of the value of, like, you know, the bull run last year, you were getting about $1 per task, right? So it was an easy way for people to make, you know, a few bucks an hour, because you really have to spend like 10, 15 minutes on a lot of these sites clicking a bunch of nonsense just to earn that task. It's really time consuming. But even then, you know, like, you were able to make a few bucks. You know, maybe let's say if you had even a few computers doing it, if you had a few computers spare sitting around, you could probably make, you know, 50 bucks a day. I don't know. I'm guessing maybe 30, maybe 50, maybe 100. I really don't know. But not a lot of money, right? But, you know, certainly enough to be, to justify the expense of having a little bit of fun and getting some, you know, getting some bucks for it, right? Why not? You know, you feel part of the mining community, because you're basically contributing to, in theory, their ability to mine or buy coins and then distribute them, you know, to people who do certain tasks according to the number of tasks they did and time they spent doing it, etc., etc., etc. So it's very, I mean, obviously nobody's getting rich off of a faucet, right? Nobody's getting rich off of a take free money situation when it's something like that. You know, but it was a way for people to make some extra bucks, and what the heck, why not? But now the value of those tasks has gone from about $1 to about a penny. Okay. And it's not just Bitcoin. You could also get Ethereum. You could also get Litecoin. You could also get Dash. You could also get a whole bunch of different coins. Had quite popular faucets, and many of those faucets are still up today, and people are still collecting tiny fractions of Bitcoin Satoshis, and they're getting, you know, pieces of Dash and pieces of whatever, and great, you know, Bitcoin Cash. I know they're collecting, but here's the thing, right? Like, the amount of time you spend doing it, it's literally cheaper for you to either mine it or to just buy it, right? And the easiest thing is, frankly, to just buy it, trade it. That's the easy. I mean, people always ask me, like, what's the easiest way to get into crypto, to have a bunch of crypto to start with if you don't make your own, or you're not working on a project in marketing, but I want to get into it. Well, you know, again, not financial advice, but the easiest way to buy an asset is to just buy the asset. So you can go on any of those, wherever they sell them, like Coinbase, Binance, KuCoin, BitHum, wherever you trade, Gemini. I don't know. People use. I've heard many bad things about some exchanges. I don't want to say which ones, but be careful about your, choices of where you buy and sell. But, people use local Bitcoins if they don't want to buy them on exchanges, right? You can also always look up local Bitcoins. That's a resource people use. And that's how people would get into it, right? So, if you know someone who wants to know how to get into Bitcoin or crypto and they don't know how to get in and they don't want to buy on an exchange like Coinbase or something where they have to do all that KYC stuff, you can do local Bitcoins, but then you got to be really careful because, if you don't know who it is and you're buying from a stranger and you have to meet them or whatever, it can be challenging, right? And it might, you don't want to do anything unsafe also. So be careful with that. But I just think the easiest thing to do for most people is to use something like, Coinbase or Binance or one of those exchanges that's popular and about as well regulated as can be given the space, right? And is that important? I mean, if you're really concerned about your privacy more than the regulations, then, there are plenty of decentralized exchanges and stuff where people get into it. But I really digress from the topic, which is not giving that kind of advice in general. But, if you need those resources, there are links, a couple things. But the point of this is faucets are an easy way for people to get into the whole buying and, selling of cryptos. So it was a useful marketing application for many cryptocurrencies, especially during the bull runs. And it will probably be again, right? People will absolutely go run to faucets and do meaningless tasks when Bitcoin surpasses 10K again. Absolutely they will. If they're getting the same number of Satoshis as they were back when it was 10 grand, you know, a year and a half ago, they absolutely will. But if those rates that they're getting paid are not significant and it's cheaper to just buy it, then why wouldn't they just do that? Anyway, this article here basically breaks down very nice and neat why it is not worth currently wasting your time on faucets. And I absolutely agree. If you're running a faucet campaign, like, it's probably, you know, you're probably not focusing on it, right? Because if you are, it's probably not getting you a lot of pull because the rates you're paying out are so low. But if you are successfully getting people into your faucet, leave a comment below. I'd love to know what it is you're doing to attract people to something that requires so much effort in exchange for so little money. You know, how are you convincing people to use a faucet? Because I would not recommend using a faucet for any marketing campaign right now, while these prices are not just as low as they are, but while the value of the reward is as low as it is, right? Because the fact that the prices of the coins are cheap, that doesn't actually matter. It's the fact that the reward value is so low, right? The fact that the prices are cheap is actually a good thing. But they shouldn't therefore also reduce the value of the reward. If anything, it should increase it because the prices of the coin are so cheap compared to a year ago. So if they were able to make money during the hype days, they certainly should be able to make money now. If they're charging, you know, advertisers, they can still just adjust the rate. Maybe they're making less, but then you're making less because there's less interest in the market. So go do other things, right? But if you're running these campaigns and you're still promoting faucets, you know, remember, people are going to come and have a bad experience right now if you don't give them a decent reward. So you might get a spike in your traffic. You might get a boom in usage at some point. You might get some kind of a pump or whatever, something good PR or who knows what. But ultimately, if you leave the users with a bad experience, you're going to burn people on your site, and you might even burn them a little bit off of crypto. They might feel, you know, less enchanted by the whole notion. Which ultimately, if you're a marketer of crypto projects, unless you're just in it purely for your own self-interest into this quarter, you know, like if you don't have a long-term vision of this stuff, then fine. But otherwise, you should care about more than just this quarter, and you should care to not burn people out of crypto so quickly, because it very well may be the future of money, right? It very well may be. It's yet to be proven. That has yet to be proven, right? But if you're an old school diehard cryptocurrency person, one way or the other, you might view this as the future of money. And if you're new to crypto, it might appear that this is clearly going to be the new form of money. Why? Well, because that's basically what is being built up to be. It's called cryptocurrency, and there are already sovereign governments that recognize cryptocurrencies as money, and there are discussions among pretty much every central bank and every major government about cryptocurrency as money. And although they all pretty much deny it still, right, except for the countries where it's already legal, like Venezuela and the Marshall Islands, they, pretty much every major trading exchange has or is planning some kind of regulatory affairs and trading desk and other things like that. They're discussing it as an investment vehicle because it is that. They're discussing it as a form of currency because it is that. And they're going to eventually call it money because it will probably be that. In one way or another, right? The march will happen. We don't know which one will succeed or which ones will succeed. It will clearly not just be one, right? This isn't the case. This isn't like an all or nothing situation. For whoever believes that any situation with thousands of players is an all or nothing, they don't get it, right? Is there more than one Facebook? No. But is there more than one social media website? Yes. Right? Is there more than one YouTube? No. Is there more than one video website? Yes. Right? Is YouTube the biggest? Absolutely. Do the others matter? Yes, they do. They're not nothing, right? They do healthy business. They have different models. They work on a different scale. Do they wish they could be as big as YouTube? Maybe, but they don't have the business model for that. And that's not who they are, right? Same thing with any other company. Every company has its unique footprint and situation and context. And if you had, let's say, 3 cryptos and no more could be developed for some weird reason, because we all didn't think that there would ever be a need for more, which is ridiculous. But let's say there were only 3 cryptos and there was a big battle to see which one would win, and only one would win. And in the end, you had 1 crypto. You really think that would be good for any ecosystem? That would be completely ridiculous. People that argue that we only need 1 language so we can all communicate better have no idea what they're talking about. People who always say that we only need 1 crypto so we can all exchange better have no idea what they're talking about. And I'm talking about some pretty expert blabbermouths, okay? Professional traders who have a reputation that is solid, absolutely 100%. But they have no idea, like, they're clearly in the bag, they're shilling for one cryptocurrency or another when they are maximalists of any kind. I'm not going to talk about which currency even, but you know the ones, I'm sure. And anyone who's just shilling their one thing without caring about the rest of the ecosystem isn't helping the ecosystem and is harming their own business. Because it comes off so clearly as unauthentic, as as not genuine, right? It's very disingenuous to only believe in one thing. Like, do you only eat one kind of bread? Do you only drink one kind of milk? Do you only use one kind of phone? Do you only use one kind of underwear? Do you only dress with one kind of shirt? I mean, if you're Mark Zuckerberg, you might answer yes to that last question, but hey, that's why you're a very unique and different person. But at the same time, it doesn't give you any sense of style or anything else, right? Very blah. Like, nothing special about it. But he doesn't just use one phone. He doesn't just wear only, or, who knows what he's wearing under his pants. But, nor do I want to know, thank you. But, excuse me. Sometimes a laugh will make you cough. Yeah, but I mean, the point is, even Mark Zuckerberg doesn't just use one computer, right, or one phone throughout his life, right? Nor will we use just one crypto. Do you use only one form of currency? Like, do you only use dollars or yen or euro? Have you never used any other currency in your life? If you've never left your country, that's a possibility, but it's still unlikely. Like, you might have seen other currencies in your life. You maybe have even traded with somebody for one. Hey, I'll give you this piece of paper for that piece of paper just because it's a curiosity. That's a trade. So, wow. Excuse me, folks. Whew. Something about this. Winter. But yeah. So stay away from faucets is my general position on the matter. Don't waste your time with faucets until the market is better again. If you're marketing faucets, don't waste your time marketing faucets right now. But if you are, I'd love to hear from you again. So let me know. Now on to something else that's connected in a weird way to this whole thing. Not directly, but in the grand view of the ecosystem. MtGOX, right? Magic the Gathering online exchange. MtGOX. You guys might remember if you've been in Bitcoin for anything over a few months, you might have heard their name. Even a month, it's one of the first things people tend to hear about when they hear about the big scandals that happened throughout the history of crypto. And here you can see on Crypto Slate, the founder of hacked Bitcoin exchange MtGOX, Mark Karpelès, sentenced to over 2 years. So there you go. It happened in Tokyo. The founder of MtGOX was not only found guilty of tampering with records, he was given a suspended prison sentence of 2 years and 6 months. The High Court rule comes 5 years after the terrible crash that happened when there was a security breach in 2014 at MtGOX. it led to a lot of money, many, many millions of dollars for local and foreign Bitcoin investors, right? If you had any money in Bitcoin back then, there was a pretty good chance some of it was sitting on MtGOX, because that was, you know, that was the main exchange back then, really. There were others, but by the time that happened, but it was, you know, it was a big one, right? That was the big exchange. And so imagine if Binance or Coinbase basically tanked today, right? Would that affect you even a little bit? Imagine if Kraken or Gemini fell today. Would that affect you? You know, imagine IDEX or, you know, DEX or DX Exchange or any of the exchanges out there crash today. Would that affect you? Are you too smart? Do you think you're too smart? Or do you have all your money safely stored on a cold hardware wallet, right? Well, this guy, right, basically got sentenced to 2 years, suspended, because, you know, he was basically embezzling, right? So the Japanese court basically gave him the sentence to say, no, 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 you know, you are a naughty boy, and this shall be your penance, right? So he still maintains his innocence, and he still denies all the charges. And what he said after the trial, he said, quote, "Most people will not believe what I say. The only solution I have is to find the real culprit." You know, okay, classic line for someone to say after they are convicted. Take that as you will. But is this good for marketing of crypto? I say very much like the whole Faucet thing. Okay, this had to happen. Now, they never caught the actual guys who did this, right? They never actually caught the hackers, right? Which means that there's a ton of money floating around that is stolen, that is in circulation, whether it's held in a wallet or something. It's out there, right? Maybe it's been laundered, maybe it's been whatever, but it's stolen money, right? And, you know, it makes you wonder why exchanges that are as big as MtGOX can have a thing like this even happen. Why they don't have better security in place from not only from day one, from before they ever launch, but even forget from before they launch, because clearly that didn't happen, right? But why wouldn't they have measures in place to prevent these kind of things from happening? And the reason that it needs to be done is very simple and obvious. The confidence it brings to the user experience. Without having these repercussions for those who, you know, really do bad things, it's hard to get the average investor into this topic and into crypto in general. It's really hard, because all you're showing them is, we have a system that gets gamed, and you're a sucker if you buy into it. And if that's your motivation, you know, then maybe don't do that in crypto, because this could potentially be a very important industry, impacting the lives of a lot of people in a good way, the same way the internet impacts the lives of a lot of good people. And I think that if you try to negatively impact this space in such a way, not intentionally, but if you try to do something that may potentially negatively impact the space in such a way as MtGOX or other massive scandals, then you are doing more harm to yourself than you ever could to the actual industry, right? Like, I worry for you if you do something silly like this, not because of the damage you could do to the industry. Because, yeah, you could damage the industry, but it's a big industry and it's growing. Now, it's tiny compared to other things that we've just spoken before. Yes, sure, it's smaller than Amazon. It's still $150 billion, you know, dollar industry. But it's not nothing. You know, 135 billion is not nothing. So just keep that in mind, right? There are thousands of companies, right? 2,000 cryptocurrencies. That means for every cryptocurrency, think about how many other companies there are aligning themselves to each crypto, or doing things, partnerships, working with, enabling, reselling, whatever, promoting, doesn't matter. So for every crypto, there's many companies around it, and each crypto has its own universe of number of companies around it. And each company has its number of people, and those people have a number of customers, and customers are friends and relatives, etc., etc. So, although small, it is not insignificant, given it's only been around for 10 years, and it has grown rapidly, despite the bear market in terms of usage rate. And no, I know Bitcoin only has, a very small number of millions of users, and it's one of the biggest ones, and Ethereum also, and there's not that many millions of people using it, and yes, it's pathetic. It should be much bigger, but it takes time to get these things to be common, right? And so there's this article, again, in blockchain, and Invest in Blockchain, same thing, talks about the same topic. You can look at that one too if you want a description. I could spend time on it, but this connects in a very strange way, okay? Because the evolution of what happened with MtGOX and the evolution of what happened with the drying up of the value of faucets, okay, impacted use across the world in many ways. And people's perception of Bitcoin, many of them went to dark places. But some of them did the opposite. And we see the story of Venezuela and other countries in South America where they use Bitcoin increasingly. But now comes this interesting article from Chris Roper, right, who is a communication manager at Constant, and he writes that Venezuela, despite being in chaos and despite seeing the massive surge here that you see in the use of Bitcoin on local Bitcoins in Venezuela, right, you can see it spiked in the past months, like massively, right? That's like just look at the past year here. You can see these taller spikes are in the past few months, and the past six or so months, as you see this rising graph of insane proportions, very hyperbolic. And the reason that we've had a recent drop, by the way, in the current the February report is because the week of February 23rd, there was also, I don't know if this is an incomplete map or not, or date range, but they did have like an 80% power cut. So for some time, for days. So basically, no one could actually trade in Venezuela, or very few people could. But in any case, yes, he argues that Venezuela is better off with their current system of trading dollar-backed digital assets than trading Bitcoin, because the price of Bitcoin has lost a lot of money, and a lot of Venezuelans, he claims, have lost their holdings and their savings in the last year due to trading in Bitcoin and other crypto. It's hard to say that a lot of Venezuelans have lost their fortunes when it's still only a very small amount of Venezuelans overall who are actually using it. Okay, so it's incorrect to make that argument. Like, we're talking about, you can't on the one hand say that this is a thing that nobody uses and at the same time it's hurt everybody. It may have hurt some people who didn't know how to trade and put their money in and just let it go down. Maybe, but actually the money that it went down 85% is far more than the 900,000% interest rate or inflation rate they've had on their bolivar. So they actually would have made money relative to their bolivar, like significantly. So they're not badly off, actually, if they're trading well. But if they don't know how to trade, well, then they probably shouldn't be in the speculative market. That's true. And should they use a dollar-backed, more stable currency to make investments? Yeah, probably. Absolutely. But are most people smart enough to do what they should? It turns out they're not. I mean, people are smart. Yes, we're very capable and we can do anything. But in general, masses of people do not make the best, smartest financial decisions, right? If they did, we'd all be rich, but we're not. So, this argument, actually, that the dollar is a better investment thing for Venezuela than Bitcoin, is in many ways correct. It's hard to disagree with that, right? You have to give him the fact that a lot of people lost their money in Bitcoin, but it's, again, not a majority of the population. It's a tiny, tiny sliver of the population that even trades in Bitcoin, and they see the longer-term value. Clearly, that's why they're buying this, and they're using it for practical purposes. But yeah, okay, let's say a lot of people lost their savings, so use dollar investments. Also, Bitcoin is still quite new for most people. Not everyone knows how it works. Well, there you go right there. The answer, right, and that's from a quote from a Venezuelan engineer named Carlos. That's wonderful. So I would say to Carlos, right, who clearly knows more about Venezuela than I do, that of course not everyone knows how it works. Of course it's quite new. You know why? Because it's new and not everyone knows how it works yet. It's still exactly what he said. Like, I'm agreeing 100%. It is new. Not everyone knows how it works. That's why more education needs to be done, and rapidly. And that's why it's actually good that the government of Venezuela is accepting payments, as much of a joke as that is, that anyone is going to actually remit payments through them when they have absolutely no need to. They can just send peer-to-peer directly through Bitcoin. Boom. What do they need to send to the government for? Right? Of course, some will have to comply because it will be too obvious if they don't. But some others who are off the radar or below the radar absolutely will not need to, probably, because it's, how are they going to enforce that? They're going to go to every single person and force them to open up their keys? Well, then what do they just say? I don't have any keys. How are you going to prove they have keys if they just memorize their phrase? They don't have any, they don't even have a piece of paper where they're written down. How are you going to prove that they even have keys? Right? You got to think about that. So again, that's all part of this marketing arc of crypto, which I know you're like, well, how does politics fit into the marketing arc of crypto? Well, Bitcoin's marketing arc is organic, right? There's no central figurehead of marketing. There's no head of anything because there's no Bitcoin central authority. And that is part of its beauty. And people who don't understand that, people who say transactions aren't fast enough and it needs to, I agree, transactions should be faster. And the beauty of things like the Lightning Network, which is a second layer solution, or other cryptos that are just natively faster, is that they offer you that speed. But you know what crypto offers you at the Bitcoin model, and at the Litecoin model, and at the Ethereum model? They offer you proof of work. Proof of work is massively important for something to have real value. And we've discussed in the past how proof of work, despite everyone saying that it's costing the energy of the world and this and that, and that's total nonsense. It's been proven that Bitcoin miners are increasingly using green energy, clean energy, alternative energy, all these wonderful things. They're using solar, wind, they're using all kinds of different energy solutions because it's more profitable. So they're actually creating a greener environment by inventing this money. Okay? The central banks print real money. They print greenbacks with not clean energy. Right? They don't invest in green energy to print their dollars. They might happen to use some power plants that might get some clean energy. That might be the case. But generally speaking, they don't care if they're using dirty energy to make their dirty money. That's just a fact. They're printing. They don't care. It's cheap, right? And they have no problem just printing money whenever they need to do something. That was recently covered in a tweet by a central banker who basically said, we can print whatever we need, which is obvious. That's their business. That's exactly what they do. They print whenever they need, and they charge whatever they want, and they distribute to whoever they want to, which is the whole problem with the central bank, right? I don't want to get into that whole thing, but from a marketing perspective, central bank story is a dying dinosaur. It cannot win. It cannot survive. It will eventually go away because people do not want to be ruled their whole life and for the life of generations into the future by a small group of people, right, with a disproportionate amount of power with the keys to all the assets. They want their own freedom. And when we have the technology to give us that, there's no reason for us to stay subservient to a system we don't like when we can just adopt a system we prefer. So the question is, which of these systems will we prefer, right? Given their central banking system is going obsolete, And yes, there will be companies that take massive advantage of that between now and the time that actually happens. There will be people who get extremely wealthy and many people who get extremely poor between now and the time we don't use central systems anymore. But it doesn't matter because you can still gain in a decentralized system. In fact, you can gain more, right? As a marketer, you can gain more in a decentralized system because you're not dependent on the permission of anyone to do your marketing at that point. You can do your marketing and reach whoever you want and get rewarded for it however you want without permission from anyone. You just do your thing, you sell your thing, and people pay you directly, or your company or whatever, right? So if you have a brand that uses or that accepts cryptocurrencies, part of your marketing should strongly be to market the fact that you adopt these cryptocurrencies, right? Because you don't want to end up in a situation where the fiat system that you're using goes the way of Venezuela, right? And this could happen anywhere, by the way, right? Especially like once the money gets tight, everything goes to, you know, hell in a handbasket, as they say. And Venezuela, let me remind you, 20 years ago, was one of the richest country, was the richest country in South America, right? Until Chavez came to town. And then he just wrecked it. But he kept up the illusion because he knew how to do that. He was a real political strongman, as they call him. And then he picked his, you know, guy to pick, you know, to follow him, some random peasant, you know, because by then Chavez was a whole bunch crazy. And he had lost his mind and decided to pick this guy, Nicolas Maduro, to be the next leader of Venezuela. And suddenly, because Chavez said it, everybody bowed down to this Maduro guy. And Maduro has just been wrecking the country because he has no idea. On the one hand, at the beginning, when he was first picked, you had to pity the fool, right? As Mr. T would say. You had to pity the fool. He was handpicked to be the leader of a nation without any qualifications whatsoever. And then, the only thing he could do was to try. But he did a horrible job trying. And he showed his true colors. And he's just bad for their country, right? I don't care if you support him or not. He's objectively bad for their country. You know, even if you support his platform or whatever, even if you think there's ultra-socialist way is the way to go, it's clearly not good for their economy, for their market, and for their story as a place to go, right? Venezuela used to be a hot destination. People used to love to go to Venezuela. It was famous for its beauty and everything else wonderful about it, and a great place to go, a tourist destination for backpackers, travelers, people visiting South America for the first time, all kinds of... It was a very attractive country. Now, people don't go there. Right? Why would you? It's not a good place to go right now. And it was all internal. Nobody did this to Venezuela. Venezuela did this to Venezuela. It's so sad. And it's part of their marketing arc, right? And again, it ties into the crypto arc because the way that Venezuelans are getting into crypto is a massive reflection of the marketing arc of cryptocurrency being the money of the future available now to people who are in a situation where the money of the present is dying every day at ridiculous rates, and their ability to cope with their centralized reality is crumbling at ridiculous rates, right? Will they get past this? Of course they will. It's in, you know, it's Venezuela. Of course they will get past this. It's not... You know, yeah, maybe you think Venezuela is, if you've never been out of America or out of somewhere, wherever you live, maybe you think Venezuela is some foreign, exotic, crazy destination. It's not. It's a big country full of, you know, wonderful people. And just, you know, it's a sad tale, and I hope this chapter in their history ends soon because they have to return to being a normalized economy, a normalized marketplace. It's an incredibly important country in terms of oil reserves. It's incredibly important in terms of, you know, business and trade across South America, Central America, North America, and Europe and Russia, and it's a massively important country. So hopefully this ridiculous story there will improve. And until then, I do agree that dollars are a better short-term thing for the average person in Venezuela to put their money into. That clearly makes more sense. The dollar is clearly more stable than the Bolivar or the Bitcoin, obviously. But long term, I think that it's not smart to depend on the US dollar, and that the marketing arc of the US dollar is predetermined to fail at a certain point in the future. We don't know the exact date that will happen, but it's clearly not going to last forever. It will shift to something digital. The central banks will make a digital fake crypto that they control. And why would you want to use that, right? If you already have money that is not controlled by them, if you already have your freedom with your money, why would you ever jump into their money again? Which, by the way, ties into, here's a nice picture, a sad picture of all these empty store shelves in Venezuela. Kind of depressing, but that's what they've become I remember these pictures from the Soviet Union in the 80s, before the Soviet Union collapsed. It looked a lot like that. I remember on the news a lot, you'd see empty store shelves in Moscow and people queuing up for hours to get into a store that had nothing. And anything that they did have, they couldn't afford. It was just sad. But that's the situation there, and it's terrible. So I think for the long term, using digital assets that are backed by dollars, as much as I love the dollar, I don't think that that's a long-term model for cryptocurrency, right? As much as when I say I love the dollar, yeah, it's great to have a world reserve currency that we can all depend on for now, but we depend on it to devalue itself every year by a couple percent. That's what I depend on it for. I depend on the dollar to be worth less every year by a couple points, which is terrible, right? That's really bad, and it's not worth much, now anyway. So, and also, it isn't backed by anything. The dollar is backed by the full faith and trust of the United States government. What does that mean? What, you have faith in the government that you don't believe in, or that you think is doing a horrible job, or that is clearly letting its own money get devalued a couple percent every year? What kind of faith can you have in a government like that? That tells you our money is increasingly worth less every year. What? Why? Well, because we have a system that's just the way it is, and we don't have it. We don't want to make it any different for now. That seems incredibly foolish, right? And that's one of the reasons that when you see the hype, so to speak, of what happens around Tether, for example, people are saying, "Oh no, Tether doesn't have." They let out a statement, a weird sort of comment saying that they don't need. Or they don't have to just keep their money in dollars anymore, right? They don't do that. They now admit that they take some of their money and keep its value in other things that they invest in, right? And one of those things can be money. Basically what they said is they allow fractional reserve lending, okay? Because they include the value of their loans in their overall value. And their value of $1 per tether is what their internal company values it to be. It isn't actually what it is. So they may actually have more than $1 per tether, or they may actually have less than $1 per tether. We don't know because there hasn't been a proper audit of their system. Why that gives people a reason to panic is not entirely clear, except for the obvious. Well, wait a minute, you're putting money into something that says they have $1 for every tether, but we don't actually know that they do. Let me ask you something. If you're not keeping a lot of money on Tether, and there's no need to, it's just a means, it's a tool to do short-term holding of money while you trade between different cryptos? Maybe. Or while you move money from a crypto to your bank account? Maybe, but you could just either move it directly or just move it into Tether and then within 2 seconds or, place the next order to move it out. So you could do that. Like, there's no reason to actually hold Tether, right? Unless you believe that it's going to keep going up in value or something over the years, when there's 50 other stable coins you could choose also that don't have that question because they do proper audits and everything else. But on the other hand, Tether has every right to make investments in something and to do exactly what basically the banks are doing. Just because they make a bad choice doesn't mean they don't have a right to make a bad choice. They might choose to have a bad marketing model that doesn't work. That's their right. Should you be worried about it? No. You should know whether or not that works for you and decide whether or not to use it. Right? If you have money there and you're worried about it, then get your money out of there and stop worrying. Right? If you haven't lost money there, like if they haven't stolen your money, they haven't done anything bad to it, so why would you panic about it? There's no point in worrying about something you can't do, and there's no point in worrying about something you can do. Because in either way, if you worry about something you can't do, you're just wasting your energy, because you can't do anything about it. So don't worry about it. You can't do anything about it if you literally can't do anything about it. But if you worry about something you can do, you're totally wasting your energy, because you shouldn't be worrying about something you can do. You could just go out and do it. And stop giving yourself excuses not to. Stop harming yourself, right? But people do, because people, we're humans, we're weak, we all fail, and that's the normal way of things. That's how we learn and we live and grow, and hopefully we live and grow and we get past these obstacles that are literally blocking our path to success, as we see here they did in Venezuela to themselves, right? This is literally a blockade put on the highway between the border of Venezuela and I think Colombia, right? They did that so that people could not bring aid to the people of Venezuela, because Maduro is proud that the Venezuelans don't need help. If people are offering you help and your own people are saying, please bring the help, why would you say no to that? I understand your ego is this and that, and I understand you might be fearing that they might sneak in some special forces or whatever. Trust me, if they want to sneak in special forces and they're already in your country, trust me, your little blockade of this highway is not going to stop them. And the embarrassment of having foreign aid come in to feed your people and rescue them from your own disaster should not be even a concern. It should be something you are completely willing and accepting of, because there are foreigners, there are total strangers who are making an effort to help you feed your people and get out of this mess. And again, that's part of your story marketing arc if you're Venezuela. And it's very sad. So I hope they get out of this soon. I hope that the people there are able to get back to a status that they previously enjoyed, and that they do manage to get back into the full swing of a proper, healthy economy where they don't have to worry about, should I invest in dollars or crypto? And they can just know the answer to that for however it works for them. And, that they will choose, hopefully, the solution that has not just the best use case, but that it's proven to them by having the best, most genuine and authentic marketing that effectively shows them why one crypto is better than another for their particular context, right? And maybe they'll choose a few cryptos. Like I said, there will not just be one. There will be a number of them that win. It's not possible with 2,000 contestants that all have different use cases that there will be only one winner. Right? This isn't like that. So, yeah, my thoughts on that you have heard, and I hope that you've enjoyed it. I hope you leave a comment or share and engage your thoughts. Hope you've enjoyed this live stream, and if you're in the lounge, thanks again. We'll continue with you guys in a little while, and so pick up the chat, leave messages, whatever you want. And if you've been watching us on YouTube, hey, I hope that the stream went well, like I said. Hope that you've been enjoying it and that everything is good. And of course, if you're watching us, please hit that old subscribe button and hit that notification bell icon so you can actually see the latest videos we post. And that's going to be it. I love all you guys for everything you bring us, the ideas, the inspiration, all the comments and everything else. So I hope you guys enjoy the chat, and until next time, folks, take care.